All right. Yet another video on why the hype for rappers is dying. I've been seeing this everywhere, every single video by everyone in the music industry. And I'm not hating on Save the World, by the way. He's a go. I mess with him heavy. But yeah, I mean, at this point, and I've seen a lot of people tweet about it, like music as a whole, or at least hip hop, is the hype is dying because there's just so many. We've talked about this so many times. There's so many rappers on SoundCloud that it's so saturated and there's so much competition and the barrier to entry is so low because all you really need is, like, at this point, just your phone, microwave it just on the speaker here. I mean, I don't know that for a fact, but like the way that you can mix vocals and everything, you can make it sound like at least decent just off of a phone with no equipment for free. Upload on a YouTube instrumental. No hate towards the YouTube producers because they're still fire, but it just doesn't take too much. So like anybody and their grandma can make rap music or just music in general. But rap seems to be the most popular genre, at least for more underground type artists. And so then there's just so much music. So the competition is high and it's getting boring because everybody's wave riding. Everybody's hopping on the newest trends of beats and flows and voices and whatever. So it's just, I think that's the problem. So let's see what Save the World has to say.
Pink Tape is dropping very soon, and while a lot of people are excited that it's finally dropping, this project has the most blatant criticism and disinterest I've seen from a project in years. People are saying that the album...
I think that it did have a lot of hate or disinterest until about, like, I'd say a month ago or maybe a few weeks ago. Just the hype is growing. I feel like fans are fickle until like the album's about to release, especially when it comes to like an Uzi, Cardi, Travis or whatever. Like people are going to hate on it just to be cool on social media until, you know, it's finally coming and they're like, oh wait, it's actually happening. So maybe the hate is just a internal thing in your mind that's trying to get the artist to finally drop something.
Album is just going to be a bunch of filler songs. They're saying he can keep it, that it's going to be ass, etc., etc. And of course, there are way more people who are excited for this to drop than there are people hating, but the group of people who just don't really care is growing larger every day. The rollout for these albums, if you can really even call them rollouts, are kind of boring. The rappers don't really give us much besides vague comments that fans analyze the shit out of, and your typical shows and some basic interviews. You don't really get hype for these albums.
I think Uzi and Cardi started that, to be honest. I think one artist who's not even a rapper who does rollouts perfectly is The Weeknd, because he'll like post these pictures where, remember After Hours where he had the plastic surgery face and then afterwards, or maybe it was right before, he had the bandages. It almost creates like a real life movie as opposed to just, again, like posting a great, no offense to Ken Carson, but just posting like a great chaos. But has a way lesser budget than The Weeknd, who can, you know, get the label to give him $50K just to do a little photo shoot for the rollout. Whereas when you're an underground rapper, you're just kind of trying to let people know you're dropping
album so much as you just get intrigued, not because these are bad artists, but because they wait so long to drop. They give us these rushed half-ass rollouts for the project that from the time the project is actually announced,
god damn, bro, I feel like he just hates on every artist, man. How can you hate on Uzi? He literally is the reason that all these underground rappers are doing what they do and act like how they do, and Cardi's a part of that too. But like, and look how they do. And I feel like Uzi and Cardi, the reason people like them so much is because they mastered the rollout. So I don't know how they can have, if you're going to criticize the rollout of Pink Tape or Eternal Take or whatever, you got to criticize everybody else because they're not doing it like them. That's why they get so much hype for their projects.
To when it's actually released, your music taste has shifted so much and your focus is on completely...
Now, I agree with that. A lot of fans outgrow in the middle of the rollout because it takes too long. but it's just their job to keep them interested.
Different artists, you don't really feel as connected to the artist anymore, and you really don't care about their project. Nobody is really hyped anymore. They're just interested. You're not really like anticipating it every day like you used to. You're not like staying up late to see if there's...
But again, I think that's just because so many artists are coming out. Like, the internet era for music didn't really start until 2015, 2016. And that was like kind of the peak, maybe 2018, where all these newer artists who wouldn't have gotten a look prior to the internet, because before it was kind of like gatekept by the label. You had to get signed to a label so that you could actually get on the radio or like get on like Spotify playlists were barely even a thing at that point. So yeah, I guess just because there are more artists, so there's so many projects to listen to every single week that you can't get as encapsulated by one project as we used to before, when like 2019 it was really just like Whole Lot of Red and Eternal Atake, and then everybody else. There was a decent amount of artists that were coming out, but nowadays again there's just so many underground artists that are dropping every single day on SoundCloud.
There's new news about it. You're just kind of going to check it out just to see if there's anything cool on it. And while I can't lie, technically on paper, these albums do well. They sell pretty well first week, etc., etc. People completely forget about them a month later. They have no replay value. They have a bunch of filler tracks, and they're quickly forgotten, completely erased from the public consciousness. And it seems like...
I agree with that. Fast food music, microwave music.
People who are still actively waiting on this shit are fans from like 2017 or 2018 who have been getting
facts
led on by these artists for years. It's a very weird relationship for fans to...
But at the same time, I feel like we can bring back actual, I don't know, like albums that last if artists were to just drop good music, and like not even timeless music, but music that can last for a few years. Like Love Is Rage 2, Uzi waited it was only 1 year, but like that album people still go back to, and it doesn't become stale or anything. And I just think that we've lost that because people are rushed to release music so often, like every 6 months or something.
To have with an artist. It's genuinely kind of strange. For example, we have Cardi's quote-unquote mysterious persona. All that really means is that the label is keeping Opium relevant through like memes and content, which benefit Cardi since he's the...
I don't think the label's doing anything, bro. I think labels don't do shit, bro. They don't. I'm sorry. The label is a bank, and the individual artists and their teams, and I know there are Interscope among other labels that might get a little bit more involved, but ultimately it's like the management of the artist, at least from what I've seen, they essentially just capitalize on the memes. Maybe they might like boost it with more money, but really they're just pouring gasoline on the fire, as we talked about with like TikTok. When a TikTok sound starts going a trending sound on that app, then they start like putting money into it. But a label cannot force something to catch on, so they don't even try to really, or I mean they try to like put it on pages, but the label is not the reason why Cardi and Opium are up. It's just because he is him.
Face of Opium, but it's getting kind of boring. It's the same cycle of people teasing something, speculation occurs, and maybe like some leaks here or there, only for it to be a big nothing burger, and the community is back at square one waiting for any kind of announcement. Not to mention the fact that people are getting tired of waiting so long for mediocre projects and songs that are just slight variations.
But see, that's why at this point I'm a grown man. I just don't even wait on shit. If it drops, it drops. Like I'll get a little bit hyped up, but I like if they announce the project, I'm ready to listen to it. But otherwise, we're just gonna forget about them, and that's kind of what happened with Sofego, waiting for 2 years. Like I wasn't necessarily hyped for Pink Hearts before it released. I was just like, yo, bro, you got to start releasing something before you fall off, and then look what happened. I don't think he fell off. Actually, I liked his last project, but you get the point. Like he definitely lost some relevance points.
Variations of an artist's previous work. Destroy Lonely previewed some snippets, and fans let him know right away that this shit is getting boring. It also doesn't help. that artists are marketing their music in the most gimmicky and tasteless ways possible. For example, the Dirk and Youngboy beef, they got all this attention from tweets.
That was corny.
Hyped it up as this big war between the artists just to drop two of the most cookie cutter, boring ass projects of
I've been saying this about all those street rappers, bro. It all sounds the same.
the decade. The promotion matters more than the art itself, and once the project drops, no one really cares or remembers the album. But another interesting point I want to bring up is that the hype you do see for some artists might not even be real. Nobody ever seems to talk about this, but there is a slight portion of the community in every rap fandom really that are not even actual fans. Labels are known for hiring interns to create fan pages and different accounts on various social media just to keep the hype for a specific artist going, which is why when you see an artist drop something relatively mid and it gets a lot of hype and attention, it's probably because the label and the team for the artist just injected a bunch of their own accounts and content into the community to create a narrative around the project. Now, I'm not
denying that might be a thing, but I don't know. I don't know. I feel like it's way more efficient for a label to just bot streams than to pay like actually interns might do it for free. So maybe that might be a good method and efficient because it's literally like infinite returns. But like why continue to create content on a fan page or whatever when you can literally like the end goal, right, is to get streams, aka money. So just they probably just bought the streams, or they have bot farms, stream farms, where they can just print money, bro. It's the same thing as what the government does.
Saying this is like a huge problem. This probably in reality accounts for a super small portion of the fans we see in the community, but it just goes to show that a lot of the hype we see around these major artists, a lot of it is artificial, especially since things like stream botting are becoming more and more popular every day. In reality, when you ask the majority of fans how they feel about the music scene in general lately, the one common theme is that everything sounds the same, or that it's just kind of sounding generic and boring. We can't entirely blame the artists for this though. Fans always complain about artists not switching it up or being lazy.
I was gonna add to that, like, as much as artists are making the same shit over and over, it's because of the fans. Like, the fans are ultimately, and I'm a fan too, so it's my fault too. I'm not just blaming y'all, but because when people do make different shit, it always gets super hated on. Like, Cardi was lucky, or maybe not lucky because he created it himself, but he had an established fan base where he can kind of do whatever he wants and people will follow. But originally, everybody was hating on Whole Lotta Red before they came around. And then they're like, oh, this is the most influential album ever. And it created rage beats, which it did. It popularized that kind of sound. I mean, not created it. But if you're like a newer artist, an underground artist, if you switch it up completely, like do a 180, I mean, you see what's happening to Summers. Like, he doesn't really know what to make right now, because it's like, do y'all want me to do the trap glow shit, or y'all want me to do the plug and B? Because when he drops a plug and B album or tape, they're like, yo, switch it up. And then when he drops something different, they're like, yo, go back to plug and B. It's like, you can't please anyone, so you kind of just got to do. That's why I've been kind of like thinking about, if you're an artist, you low key just should not care about sales whatsoever. Even if you get clowned, just drop whatever you want to drop. And like, the fans don't realize that even if you sell under like 10K first week, which is still like millions of streams, you're still making a really good amount of money. And so just because you sold like triple copper or whatever dinner plate, or what is it, paper barbecue dinner plate copies, you still, that's still a sizable amount that's beating like salaries of their parents, of both of them combined, you know? So that's just something to think about.
It's not like you can snap your fingers and make a new sound that revolutionizes music. The shit is hard. Like, it's hard to make music, especially when you're having to do 3,000 other things for the label while also being stuck with the same producers, not really being able to properly branch out. However, there is one upcoming project that has an extremely interesting rollout and a huge storyline behind it where the artist has a lot to talk about. The only project that I'm personally excited for.
True. Yeah, I'm excited for Trav too because you know he's gonna come in. I mean, it's been 5 years. You know he's gonna come in with something crazy that I don't know. Maybe it'll influence the underground to get onto a new sound because I feel like the underground wasn't really popping before like 2020. I know there was like Autumn and Summers and like Slay World, but they didn't really start to get recognition until now. Whereas underground is more kind of commercialized. Like people are more like casual listeners are more inclined to listen to SoundCloud and newer songs that don't necessarily have a lot of streams or followers just because they're looking for something new. I don't know. It's just more palatable nowadays. At least they're more interested in it. Whereas before underground, like it was considered X and Ski Mask and Lil Pump, but like they blew up so fast. Like how long were they really in the underground? They were in the underground before 2016 when they were grinding with like a couple thousand followers on SoundCloud when people didn't even really know who they were, but people still considered them underground even though they had 1 million followers. But yeah, so we'll see. I think Uzi's gonna drop, Trav's gonna drop, and we'll be good for mainstream music for a while. I know some people are just gonna hate because like, oh my god, it's mainstream music. I only listen to underground music, but we need this. Underground hasn't been putting on for the game lately.